Welcome into the Own to Own podcast. Excellent to welcome in David Brudenell. Australian SMEs are ready to move, but they're missing the map, the tools, the traction. Competing in the future will take more than belief. It needs a system built for action. It sounds like something you'd say. So can you tell us about the research that Decidr is doing into adoption, implementation of AI strategies for Australian SMEs?
Yeah. It's I really like that quote because it talks about infrastructure as opposed to dazzly stuff on the surface, which everybody naturally moves towards with technology. At Decidr, we launched what I believe is the country's first AI readiness index. So we went out to thousands of businesses, big and small, and we asked them some pretty simple questions, right? Are you ready? What do you think AI is? What are you doing about it? And do you really have a plan to drive this into your business? And I don't think there's any surprise, but most businesses have neither of all of those four things in their business. And there's this kind of onslaught of information, as you and I were kind of chatting before we first started, like there's this glut of information about AI. And for any business owner, big or small, trying to make sense of it is pretty difficult. And so like as a consequence, I think lots of Australian SMEs are paralyzed, but also, and in my direct experience, over the past 10 years or so working with artificial intelligence, is that people are trying to put this inhuman technology into very human organizations. And I like to use an analogy of when online came out, right? Retail stores didn't just like take their retail store and put it in an online page. It was a different medium, right? It looked different. People interacted with it in a different way. But we're literally trying to take this AI and just jam it into our business, which is the opposite of what we should do, which is let's build a business from scratch for AI first, and then let's figure out how to put humans in it, right?
Yeah.
To guide it.
That's a good parallel. When online first became a thing, there was a lot of fear that bricks and mortar was dead, and we've had 20 odd years of that. AI is either an opportunity or a threat. What are the steps that we all need to go through to take advantage of the opportunities?
Yeah. Well, actually, like just before I start, I was listening to the CEO of Anthropic have a discussion just yesterday, and what he said was if these AI model makers stopped work today, there's still 10 years worth of innovation that could happen. So absolutely, like these things are so powerful that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in front of everyone. So that's kind
It's
of
like work in progress is built up, and there were.
Yeah. There's just this inertia that's just ready to roll. And every AI model, like the average time for an upgrade is 7 weeks. So you can imagine how fast this is stacking on the shoulders of giants. So I like to say that because it kind of puts things into context about, you're absolutely right. Like there's so much opportunity for us, but there's like our readiness index suggested that people are like largely paralyzed, right? There's just so much opportunity.
Yeah.
Where do I start? So to answer your question is, what the data suggested in the study was 90% plus of all small business owners, they were really just using one thing, which was either ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude from Anthropic. And they were just playing around with stuff. And so I think the first step would be businesses. So it's good that businesses are doing that. And most businesses were. I'd say probably the first step is now to go to the next step beyond just basic consumer prompting and really start to look at system design. So businesses can accept that these tools can work across most, if not all, areas of the business. So that I think people should start taking that as kind of a common capability of these tools. The first step would be to then actually look inside their businesses and say, where is this knowledge work going and where are these processes? Because I think most businesses it's all this like we call it hidden knowledge in Decidr. So, you run a small business. I've built small businesses before, taking them small to big. And there's a lot of like that je ne sais quoi, the hidden knowledge of like how you do processes, and really take a moment to look internally and say, okay, what actually, if I drew lines, if there's railroad tracks for my business, like how does a customer flow through all the different departments in my business and who touches those things? That would be number one, is kind of to look internally. And then the second thing is to look at your SaaS tools that you use. Like businesses are actually shaped by their SaaS tools. If when I take a moment and I think about it, you have a CRM system, you have an accounting system, and you literally have workflows where humans tippy tap stuff into a computer. Somebody then takes that report, builds one, extracts it, but AI doesn't need any of those interfaces, right? And so if you're able to map those things through, you can actually put a cross line through many of those structures because you can shortcut it and almost go back to like the purest workflows, right, of a customer going through your business.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's where I would say is start to actually look inside, like look at your business and take a moment to map some stuff out.
Yeah, you made an interesting comment. I think it was basically saying, to think ground up.
Yeah. I think people incorrectly assume that you can just plop an AI into your business and it does everything. There's two big problems which come from that. AI is what's called probabilistic, which means that instead of deterministic, it goes through workflows. If you go into ChatGPT and you put the same prompt in 3 times, you get like 3 different results, right? Out of it. And so you need reliability, and generative AI has low reliability at the moment. And it's actually, the cost of AI is deeply subsidized at the moment by venture capital. Like remember 10 years ago with Ubers, how cheap they were, right? Compared to now. I
Yeah.
think I took one in this morning and it was $50 to go, like 5 kilometers, tragically. But that's because, VCs were subsidizing the cost of Ubers to get us to download the app, to build the habit, et cetera, et cetera. When you start chaining together these tasks within a generative AI agent, there's a quadratic increase in cost. So in some cases, like getting AI to do it is more expensive than getting a human to do it. And truly. And so, when we use the word agentic, which it's a new word, and I don't think many people actually know what it means, but it's when you give a system a goal and it figures out the best way to achieve that goal. And agentic can have humans in it. It can have AI in it, but it can also have conditional logic in it, right? And a good system design gets you more conditional logic, which is way cheaper than the first two, humans and AI.
Do you want to just talk about what agentic AI is?
Yeah, sure. I got to work on a lot of the models that were developed in the world. I work, in my past. So, I know how much it costs to build a large language model, which is enormous. It's enormous
Yeah.
numbers. But generative AI. So the first thing for like people listening in is like when you go to ChatGPT and when you type in your prompt, large language models do not understand what you're asking of them. They are just pure probability engines, meaning that OpenAI has 20 trillion tokens in its pool, and a token is like a word. And so all it's doing, it's taking the first word in your prompt and the second word, and it's going into the tokens and saying, how are those words linked? And what is the highest probability of the next word to give you back in your response? And that's why like a company like NVIDIA is worth $4 trillion, because it's just like a horsepower game. Like every single word goes and hits 20 trillion things. And that's why you need these GPUs from NVIDIA. And that's why like 90% of NVIDIA's revenue comes from like the top 10 tech companies in the world, because they're just slurping up all of this power, right? This horsepower.
What comes to mind is one of those, the balls in a cage, and you wind the handle, and lottery balls. You get a different one this time.
Yeah. It's really what it is. It's just going, okay, you put in the word doctor. I like to use the example. It's called vectors, right? That's actually the technical term. And I like to use the word of a house, right? And you have a townhouse, which has a very close vector distance. But then you have the television show with the grumpy doctor, which is house. And that has a long vector distance. And so all it's doing is saying, you used house and use grass. So that means it's a townhouse. So use that word instead of the television show, Hugh Laurie. So I think that's the first thing to understand is like that these generative AI models don't understand what you're asking about. They're simply running a probability and they're giving you a result. So as a consequence of that, an AI agent or a generative agent, when you ask it to do things, it is simply running probabilities to give you the result. And so they're really good at what I would call like task-based design. So I'll use the example of like book me a flight to Paris is a really good example of an AI agent, right? But if you ask it 3 times, you'll probably get 3 different prices. Okay. Where the world will go to very quickly, and I'd say in the next 6 months, AI agents or generative agents will kind of go in the shadows, and agentic agents or agentic apps will start to come out. An agentic app is goal-oriented, meaning that you give it a goal and it'll figure out the best way to achieve that goal. And so book me a flight to Paris is an AI agent. You go find me a holiday my family will love is an instruction you give to an agentic agent. And it might go to your Instagram feed and look to see if you like snow holidays or beach holidays.
Yeah.
It'll look at your job title. It'll reference that against a salary database and see how much you could afford.
Yeah.
But then it might ask you questions. It'll say, Michael, do you like, what kind of food do you like? Do you want a holiday, an adventure holiday? So it may ask you questions, right? And off the back of those three, those are just three simple. It would do many, many different permutations, but then it will try and achieve the goal. And it might offer you Paris, but also the south of France, or, Antarctica, right? If you end up being, I want extreme cold. And so that's the difference between an agentic agent. But for an agentic agent to work properly, you need a good system design, right? Because then it can do that repeatedly and reliably.
Well, and also a clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve. You take it back to the business. Why am I in business, and what's the best mix and use of resources that I've got? What's missing? But it sounds like it's coming at breakneck speeds. There's one of your reports, I think it said, "Hello, weary AI enthusiasts." And
Yeah.
I really get that. It's like, it's turmoil. It's breakneck. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It just like, I have AI just to filter information that I've created. I've created agents just to like scan the web and to take all the noise and filter it out to the most important things. But you're absolutely right. It's like, for an SME, where do you start? But also, like, what's I think going to be really challenging for SMEs in the near term is, like, I've had small businesses, right? I've spent Saturday morning doing accounts and payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you don't have a beat to think about anything, let alone the aspirations for your company. So we're literally rushing into a world where you can have a system and you give it your goals and aspirations. But like, for many SMEs, what is a P&L? What is a strategic forecast, right? What is a projection? And what aspirations do I have? If you're an SME, you'd be like, I just want to make payroll, or, I want to be able to spend some time with my kids on Saturday morning, which is an okay aspiration, by the way. But what are those things? Like, when you get asked those questions, I think there's many SMEs who'd be like, I have no idea. I haven't ever had time to think about that.
One of your businesses got acquired by Myob.
Yes. Yeah. I was a CRO of a company called Flare HR. And yeah, we were acquired by MYOB. So like, I've been connected to small businesses almost my whole career, to be completely honest. But being acquired by MYOB, and then, me and the founders, we went in, we actually worked inside MYOB in their financial services arm. And so I was privy to like the actual huge data, right, that SMEs operate with. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the Australian economy is run by SMEs, but there's not a lot of financial elbow room within SMEs. Like, they're running tight all the time.
Yeah, they are. And the power is in, where do I want to take this? Let's do some forecasting, and that drives the need to be more systematic, which is where AI systems open up the opportunity to actually achieve some of those things.
Yeah, certainly. And the number one tenet I always work to is like, AI is fundamentally a horizontal technology. And like, a good example of that is, if you go into ChatGPT or Gemini and you put in a short prompt versus a big prompt, you're always going to get a better result, right, with your bigger prompt, because you're giving it more context, right? So AI thrives on context, thus horizontal. But absolutely, with the tool, like with some of the what we call the vertical AI, so Xero's AI features are what we call vertical, because it sits within the accounting thing, are really powerful, and a fraction of SMEs actually use them to their advantage. So I think possibly that's just a matter of time before they become commonplace. But to your point, you want to move fast. This world is moving fast. So the faster you adopt these things, perhaps the more advantage that you'll have, and the more time that you'll have maybe to think about other stuff. Really, like, our take is to start looking at like how we bring the context together across the business. So it's not just your accounting platform, although that's probably the most important, like, data sync, right, into them. But it's also, what do your products say, and how do you price, and how do you talk about them, and who are your prospects, and et cetera, to provide that horizontal context. Because like, today, a small business can use AI and have the equivalent of like 10,000 employees. They can have a procurement department. They can have a vendor analysis department. These are all things that you can have, but you just need to be able to kind of put them in first, and you need to give them context of what's going on. And the wider the context, typically the better the result from that.
We have a significant challenge coming, which is what's going to happen to all these existing businesses. One of the reasons they're not attractive or sellable is because they're really owner-centric. They're viewed as not scalable, which is not what everybody wants.
Yeah, and for the first time, that, like, You can call it different things. It's called either hidden knowledge, it's je ne sais quoi, it's tacit knowledge, like whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. But like in founders and business owners, you've got a ton of it in your head, right? And you just know how to do it. If you take a beat and you start putting it, like systematizing it, that's when it unlocks, right?
Yeah.
That's where you can have a customer service agent talk in the same way that you would talk. And like we have real customer examples of where the founder of really specialized businesses have said like, this is just like how I would respond. And that's powerful for a founder who, like, let's face it, we're all slightly crazy and control freaks and all those different things. But if you know that someone's going to do that, but also like it's the average wage in Australia is $100,000, right? That's a big cost for any business to look and grow. And typically you've kind of got like three choices when you grow, right? I have to spend a lot more on advertising. I have to spend a lot more on CapEx, right? For a bigger store or something like that. And I have to hire people, right? And all of three of those have six figures attached to them, right? Those choices, which is not great. And now for the first time, there's another choice, which is how can I put system-based AI in my business? And I know that's less than six figures, far less than six figures.
Yeah. Your readiness index, was that a particular look at SME readiness or more broadly business readiness?
Well, it covers all businesses, big and small, but I think that SMEs have the most to gain from artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I also believe that they are the highest at risk to be disintermediated by big business. And so we're at kind of this precipice at the moment with SMEs. And so that's why I wanted to do this readiness index to establish a benchmark. And it's an index, so we'll do it, at least twice a year.
Yep.
I think I want to do it a little bit faster because how fast AI moves.
Yeah.
You can kind of it can give direction to SMEs, and also, the Australian government is not doing that great when it comes to AI.
Yeah, well, there's a few organizations that could step up because we've got this triangle, a small number of giants, a not insignificant number of medium-sized businesses, and we've got small, medium enterprises getting picked off by bigger businesses, and then the medium gets picked up by so we do have a real issue. So, and I agree entirely that the opportunity is to scale, make more resilient this massive base of small, medium, micro enterprises, and because they make up whatever percent of
92%.
all businesses.
Yeah, it does. Because for the first time, this is like AI is like electricity, right? Everybody has access to it. The same thing, right? So for the first time, SMEs have like an equal chance at an enterprise actually getting it right. And actually, my argument is that because they're less sophisticated, they potentially can add sophistication at a better rate than an enterprise. Because enterprise are just like these huge beasts with tons of levels, and let's face it, like crazy humans in every single area. But if you're a founder, you're only one crazy human, right? And if you can grapple with yourself,
and you're the boss,
so you can like
just roll it out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a lot to gain, and like this world we're going into, you don't need a CRM system. Your platform will find prospects for you, right? It will build a website in real time for the visitor based on their values and how they want to read the product description and the service description. Like these are realities, right? That are, they're already here. We've done it with some of our customers, but that, like I call it the baloney piece. Like if all that baloney, the administrative baloney, that's handled by AI, just like when you get like, I don't know, it's been a long time since I opened the bonnet in my car to like look at the engine to see if it works, right? And to understand like, are all six pistons working in my car? Like that's what we're doing in businesses today. We're literally going into the engine room every single day and being like, okay, does this piston right? Is the spark plug, spewing petrol in the right way?
Yeah.
That's going to all go away, which will allow us to kind of enjoy the journey, to kind of take my car analogy a little bit further. And that's now you're talking about the higher level human stuff, which is hard, by the way, because most people don't have a lot of great products, but now they'll be forced to have great products. And so I think
or make them real quick,
make them real quick. Yeah, fair enough.
I can imagine some people just going, I'm checking out, I'm out of here. But look, I think for the others though, and there's many of them, with Decidr, we haven't really covered what Decidr does. You're the executive director. What briefly does Decidr do, and how is that there for, businesses, small businesses?
Yeah. So Decidr is essentially an agentic platform business platform that's built specifically for SMEs. And so you can take the tools and the data that you have in your business, like Xero, like Shopify, like Google spreadsheets, we all have a Dropbox folder with God knows what's in it, but important things, right? You can connect all those things to your Decidr operating system, and that configures itself to help to be your AI business. And so it's a full end-to-end operating business. You have to participate in it, right? You drive it, you give its code of conduct and things like that. But it allows small businesses to kind of unshackle from all of that administrative hidden tasks and focus on the important stuff. And like what that actually looks like is you connect your data to your business. It syncs in, it kind of seeds the intelligence. It's like a brain. And then it goes out and starts to create and manage the data itself. And then you have what we call agentic apps, which sit on top. So that could be like, you can have a sales app on your website that knows the product ingredients better than any human, can speak in 72 languages, is available 24 hours a day, right? And can transact, and knows if it's an existing customer, right? It can do that. It can go all the way through to checking your bank reconciliations and, chasing up invoices. So it's a full end-to-end business that you can get, and you could choose to use as much or as little as you want of it. That's how we've structured our pricing and our design. So you can just start really small, but then build up as kind of market forces take it, or you get more comfortable.
So it's connecting disparate systems,
Yes.
and that's I think that's one of the biggest frustrations. We're all founders, we're all a bit loopy,
Yes.
And try to do everything and get frustrated when why doesn't that thing connect with that thing? And
Yes. If you have good data in your business, you're generally a relatively successful business outside of anything else, right?
yeah,
And our platform, it starts at $99 a month, and you can have a system manage your data for you. So I think there's a lot of businesses will get a tremendous value out of that, because it'll take your Xero data and it'll take your CRM data and it'll build it together into a single record, right? And then it manages it. So if it can go out onto the web, it can look inside, it can talk to other elements inside the business. And so it's a bit of a hyperbole, but if you had perfect data
yeah.
all the time, what would you start to do? Right. And it gives all these new choices for businesses.
Yeah, see, I reckon there's things that are pockets of information in their business that they might not even call data. Where I see it is that someone comes along and says, "I want to start thinking about selling my business in 3 years' time," and so I don't need a CRM, but the buyer will. But I think a lot of those businesses would have information that is really data. It's a matter of searching for it, extracting it, and using it in a more effective way. Because most businesses will have a trail of email for 20 years, on their server, a whole bunch of past clients. So I'm imagining all this can become data with the right tools.
Yeah, exactly that. I like to use the example. I think there's many businesses that you just, use Google Mail as their CRM, right? And you've got a customer coming in. In our system, if your Google Workspace or Gmail account is connected into Decidr and Xero, it will automatically link that conversation to that Xero customer record, right? And now you're going to say, wow, okay, it's just there, right? And so I think, for companies wanting to, package their business for say, like going into and using tools like Decidr or other tools, right, can be extremely helpful for the next buyer and setting them up for success. But I think like when I'm listening to what you're saying, it's like, if you have a good systems, you systematized your business, that makes it more valuable, right, to a buyer. But the intrinsic it has more intrinsic value because it's more valuable to you, right? Because it's now systematized.
That's the conundrum of exit planning. Don't do it just for the potential buyer. Do it because it makes sense today to get more out of your business. And on occasion, I've seen business owners who have started to do that, and then all of a sudden they use this term "falling back in love with my business."
Yeah.
It's a bit less stressful, a bit more profitable, a bit more enjoyable. So I don't feel under the same need and pressure to actually try and sell it. And I reckon a lot of owners would equate systems and processes with manuals.
Yeah. And I think what small business owners sometimes forget is where can the data come from to train these systems? You and I are having a video call now. This is going into a transcript, right? That becomes available for an AI system to now understand and to parse and to use. And so if you're a business owner, you can just jump on a Google Meet or a Teams meeting with your staff, make sure it's recorded. That becomes like institutional knowledge that's now available for your system. So it's actually not even that hard. Like it's not like you have to sit down as a business owner and like hand code every customer record that's in there. Like those days are long gone. It's now a matter of like, oh, I've just got to connect the right systems together, and then I have to like review. So you, instead of becoming the writer, you become the editor, right? And that's an easy thing for a business owner to do because you it's tack knowledge in your head. You're like, oh, change that, change that, change that, and off you go. Like some of these systems now, they're automatically connected in, so you don't even have to like
Yeah.
do anything, right?
Yeah.
You're just installing the app or you're installing the solution, and you just have to, I have to remember to stop using so many swear words, but you have to use the, when you're like, it just goes into the organization,
Yeah.
and AI
It
has perfect
becomes
memory.
part of the infrastructure.
Correct. Correct. And like remember too that these large language models were trained on all of the intelligence of humanity. And AI will know how to use zero better than any human because it's read everything. It's read all their documentation. It has read the ATO and all of you just got to point it to the right places. So it knows all that stuff already. So if it knows all that stuff, what's next to do?
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part, which
Yeah.
is that's the baloney piece that I keep going back to, which is all done. And now how am I going to spend more time with customers?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is an existential question for most owners of most small businesses. What's the best use of my time? What do I enjoy doing? What am I good at? And what's best for the business?
Of our one of the most, I'd say, like hot sectors of customers in our business is one I never even thought about. It's the hospitality industry. It's pubs and clubs.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, so we have a partnership with eBev, which is like the country's largest kind of online platform for buying spirits and beer and soft drinks, right? So it came from that partnership. They have thousands of venues and thousands of suppliers. So think of like Jack Daniels and Asahi and Coca-Cola are the suppliers, and the Kent Street Hotel, which is around the corner, Kent Street Pub around the corner is one of their customers. And so to your exact point is what does a business owner want to be doing with the staff at these hospitality venues? What do you want them doing? You want them spending time with customers face to face, right? And I don't know about you, but whenever you want to book a venue for somebody's birthday party or something like that, half the time they never call you back, the manager, to book it. That's a perfect use case for artificial intelligence, which knows all the available slots. It can offer a beverage package. It knows all of the details of the venue
Yeah.
perfectly, just like a manager would. And so we're
Yeah.
getting lots of traction in those places because, staffing is always tight in hospitality venues, but
Yeah.
this AI can
Hard
pick up all
hard to
that.
find firstly, hard to find people.
Yeah, how to find people. Yes, yes. Yeah. And so if all the bookings are done and the front end customer service is brilliant, that means the manager can spend time greeting the people as they come in and
Yeah.
giving them an amazing experience, right? And
Yeah.
gross margin goes up, you get more beverage sales, like all the positive stuff of like human to human interaction, which comes out of it. And so, yeah, it's like I guess I like that example because it talks to what does the real success of the business come from? Well, it actually comes from human to human interaction, but it's amplified by this kind of AI infrastructure that sits behind it. In the bricks and mortar world, it was full self-service, right? You go to a David Jones, you meet somebody, right? With online, we went right to the other side, which is full self-service. Where I think we're going back to with AI is called like AI full service. And so you can give a full service experience, but without like the cost of human labor on it. So I agree with you. I think there's many businesses and many, sectors that will kind of be revived, right, with this amazing service-led thing. But it takes the founders to be like, this is how we this is how we talk to a customer. This is how our service is. And the great thing about AI is it has perfect memory. It'll do exactly what you say, right? If it's built on with good system design.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the energy of startups, but there's a lot of perfectly strong, already started businesses that I think could be blown up, scaled, that have got customers. There's a whole lot of things that you could do better, and AI is the way to do that.
The default for many small businesses is like a protectionist default. How do I save costs? How do I get the most out of my kind of what I have? And yes, like AI can give you more kind of employee outputs per unit. But I think to your point is like the productivity side is, wait a second, I can find more prospects. I can talk to my prospects 24 hours a day, just how I would. And so there's a lot of like really exciting. I agree. I think like businesses, yes, still the startups are cool and all that stuff. But if you think about like the startup gates, kind of the big moments in a startup. So you go from one person to a few people, big leap, right? You go from you you go from 5 people to 20 people, big leap. Like, what do you need to do? You need to start at 50 people. Your FP&A, your finance department needs to get bigger. You need to have an HR person. Like, you get to go those choices at those leaps and say, well, wait a second, maybe I should look at a system-based agentic opportunity here, and that gives you the power of, a
Yeah.
full 20-person FP&A department, right? Instead
Yes.
of just one.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's their DCB. If there was more widespread take up of AI, how do you see that flow through to the broader economy and competitiveness with other economies?
Yeah, like at the sovereign level. So our data suggests, what does it suggest? That Australia is more likely today to be an AI consumer as opposed to an AI creator. That's the risk, right? And so I'm concerned about that. What could it be if we really, dig in and we start to be an AI creator as an economy? I mean, it depends on like which study you're looking at, but the general consensus is like over the next 10 years, there's roughly about 15 trillion in kind of value that's going to be created. And if you kind of look at that as around 1.5% per year, it's not going to be linear, but that's a pretty big leap, right? For our economy, which our GDP is relatively flat, to grow by 1.5%, you're looking at like that's a 50% gain in productivity, right? For an economy. So it's very, very big, the gains that you can have. And we're going into what's called like agentic commerce. So that's when AI does business with AI, right? So when a lot of the asymmetry of information is removed, that means the economies can move more quickly. You can find more customers more quickly, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think there's also an accelerator which comes out of the back of that from innovation and just general. You can use that readiness or resiliency. I like that word better when you think of like at a sovereign level. You want to have a really resilient economy that can adapt to all these new things. So we need to quickly put in agentic infrastructure into like sovereign agentic infrastructure in this country. And, that's good. Find we can get some value out of the NBN. So that'll be good. So we can start activating it, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody has like, yes, there's a lot of businesses that are, just getting on their websites, but like we can bring everybody into the age of AI. Like all the infrastructure is there. And it's just about, we've just got to have a few things to get everybody on. And then once you're on, like I move so fast that the whole country can be lifted.
Yeah. All right. So you got you gave up your role as exec director at Decidr because you got an offer to run the Australian Federal Small Business Department, and you had to lob into Canberra on Monday.
Yeah.
You got a big meeting with all the press secs and the DepSecs and whatever else.
Okay.
What are a couple of things that you're going to demand that get implemented or legislated to help us?
Okay. So wearing my blue suit with a blue tie, as the politicians do. Okay. Federal Minister for Small Business. I probably do a couple things. Number one is like, what do small businesses need? They need cash flow. They need cash flow to be able to invest into these things. So number one, I'd look at lobbying to change the CapEx treatment rules. So currently you can't capitalize data cleaning. You can't capitalize schema design. You can't capitalize like some of the system builds and rebuilds. So I'd look at the treatment of those things so that especially those medium-sized businesses can capitalize that, which I think will really help with their cash flow and their balance sheet settings.
So it's got to be OPEX.
Yes.
And therefore it takes it out of your today's cash flow, whereas you might, even if it's CapEx, be able to finance it or recognize it as a thing of value. Okay, that's pretty.
Yes. So that's why everyone's like playing, especially mid-size, are playing around with these little point solutions because you have to fund it out of OPEX.
Yeah.
But if you could capitalize it, then you can take a longer term view, right? If you're taking a 3 to 5 year view of now your system build for your AI, right? Imagine what the management team is thinking about now and the boards are thinking about. So I think that would be one of the big things. So it changes us from like short term to long term because this is a big technology shift. Like, let's face it. And, we went through this online before, so we should know what it's like. So let's just get ahead of it. So that would be the first thing I would do. The second thing is like federal government has a lot of, and sometimes state government. So I'm going to take a little leeway in the question here, but there's like payroll tax rebates that happen when you want to like bring and train workers in. Like let's give those payroll tax rebates for AI work, right? Because if AI is going to do workflow, like if you can justify that you're expanding and growing your business, which the federal government wants, right? They want more tax dollars. So if you can show that you're going to improve your top line and your tax base, tax contribution, then maybe there's like payroll subsidies that could come out of the back of that. Payroll's pretty good. Like it's a pretty big number. It's 8%, right? That I could work with. And the third thing is I would really relook at the R&D rebate scheme to really encourage and educate small businesses on how to do it. I would make it very easy for business to get rebate on R&D. I've been using the R&D rebate for many, many years successfully, but it's a bit complicated. You've got to have infrastructure. You have to do it the right way, right, to do that. And I think, and maybe the last thing is just like training programs. We need to move fast to get these the right curriculums for small businesses.
Yeah,
City of Sydney did a cool one. I mean, $10,000 grant to invest in online and digital, right? That's a great.
Was that City of Sydney? You said.
Yeah. They put like 75 million against it. So that's 7,500 businesses, round number, right? That can take advantage of it. And 10 grand is a lot. Like that's enough to get started, right? And
It
for
sure
AI,
is.
that's a lot of AI you can buy. That's a year's worth of Decidr licenses.
That's a bit, otherwise it's a very, to your point about OPEX, CAPEX for, it's a very big chunk of someone's budget. But yeah, we do. We need to think about this as infrastructure. Otherwise, and they're excellent points, DCB, by the way, I love them. But if we're going to go from consumer to creator, we need to broadly think about all of this stuff as developing an infrastructure and a mindset that where we can leverage our businesses, scale them, and compete. Go over,
Yes.
take it overseas.
I think back to like imagine 20 years ago, if the government had done that for an online business, let me help you capitalize how to build your website. Like how different would this country look? Like how many unicorns would we have, right? Coming out of it. So that's my take. That's my take in camera with my blue suit on.
Well, you might get a job offer. I don't know. DCB, that is a ripper chat, as I said. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Power to Decidr and your team to doing what you do. I look forward to keeping in touch with what you do.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Michael, for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.